liberty, and justice for all. So the main camera right now is this one. Ernie's controlling it. Good afternoon for TV land, if you're out there. So people are just going to see my back of my head through this microphone, and you folks are the main interest. That's why we're using this camera.
Okay, Chris, before
Yes.
we get started, I know how hard, and people at home know how hard it is to hear. It would probably be a good idea to move one of the microphones closer to Claudine. Anyone on that side of the room can't be heard most of the time at home.
Yeah, I don't dare pull it anymore. Frailty of the speaker. And
I'm all set. There's one right here. Yeah.
it'll hear you?
Oh, trust me. I'm loud
You're
enough.
good enough, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Good point is, okay, I'm moderating, but this is fair for all of us. And normally, if you have a, hey, Chris, why are we doing this, whatever, and it's right in the middle, just say point of order, and then we'll stop. We want to get it correct. We want it so people get to hear. Well, TV land are hearing it. So you didn't want people to see the back of your.
Oh, I'll go over there on YouTube, but people want to call this number 545-4956 if they can't hear it. But we just tested, and I think it's okay.
All right. That number again, Ernie, was?
545-4956.
Okay. And that's for questions if people want to call in by phone. Otherwise, there's also, if people are at home with the Zoom option, there's a chat. You can click on that. We'll pick the questions off of the computer screen. And I apologize for somebody out there if they don't get heard or not heard. We're doing the best we can. So, first race, Board of Selectmen, Ms. Claudine Burnham, Mr. Humphrey Williams. We always let the ladies go first. Something about my mother would always want me to do that. For an excuse. Typically, what we've done is 2-minute opening statements, 2 or 3, followed by some questions, then a 2 to 3 minute closing statement. Claudine, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Claudine Burnham, a Milton resident for 24 years. As a graduate in business from Northeastern University in Boston, where I met my husband, Gary, a longtime resident of Milton and a graduate of Newt, I have experience working in the corporate sector. Since then, settling down in a small, friendly community made for a great opportunity to start a family. While homeschooling over the last 15 years, the Milton community has been very supportive of our homeschool families at the libraries, Emma Ramsey Center, and various events over the years. Becoming an interim selectman last July, I learned rather quickly of the difficult decisions affecting our residents and town departments, which do not come lightly. Asking questions, researching, and making visits to residents and departments provided better insight in making the best decisions possible. One of my first decisions to help our residents was to extend the dog licensing deadline. Unfortunately, due to COVID, residents did not have access to the building, delaying transactions and adding late fees. As the proposed budget came along, I worked to reduce the budget line item by line item in an attempt to help reduce the tax burden for our residents. I even pushed to increase the total amount from the unassigned fund balance to be returned to the taxpayers. Regardless of the tough decisions being made, my first concern is how these decisions affect the taxpayers. I will continue to work with department heads and will strive to keep the town tax burden down and return any non-expended monies back to you, the taxpayers. Another awareness brought to my attention is the amount of state regulations and requirements that are placed on small towns, raising unforeseeable costs, which is reflective on our small town budget. I look forward to working with our state representatives to see how we may reduce costs through regulations from the state through various grants or exemptions. Being a member on the Budget Committee, I requested a 5-year comparison for trend analysis to make improvements. Work here has just begun, and I'll continue to reduce unnecessary spending. As a member of the Efficiency Task Force, I was excited to be a contributor in the recent town survey. This survey was a method for us to hear from the townspeople and give us insight on what they had to say and the direction they would like to see Milton heading in. We still have a lot of work ahead of us on this committee, but the goal is to assist the town government to become more efficient. Thank you.
Super. Go ahead.
All right, my name's Humphrey Williams. I have been involved with civil service for most of my adult life. I've had 35 years of civil service between the U.S. Coast Guard and the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, and the last 3+ years serving Milton and Milton Mills community. I genuinely believe in the value and importance of public service. During my shipyard career, after graduating from the apprenticeship, I held numerous leadership positions that are very applicable to what a selectman should be. Positions such as a production operations manager and finally a shipyard production training superintendent gave me the background for a lot of what we're doing in town today. The training and mentoring I received throughout my shipyard career prepared me to be a valuable team member and an effective leader, and someone willing to help others by passing along my knowledge and experience onto them. Using my career experience, I have worked to help the community in the following ways. I'm currently a TPPA board member, and I've also served on the zoning board here in town. I've been on the Milton Economic Development Committee for the last few years, and one of the first things I suggested and worked on was a town survey to reach out to the residents on input for ways to improve our community. I believe we need to rebuild trust within the community, and that starts by listening to and responding to resident input. I've been on the Budget Committee for the past 2 years and have worked to reduce spending. I've established new procedures and new processes in order for us to move forward with that budget. As the chair this past year, I led our team to create bottom line operating budgets for the town and school that meet their needs, but still come in under the default budgets. So why do I believe I'm the best candidate for filling the vacant seat? Our community needs someone with experience in finding efficient ways of reducing operating costs. Someone willing to make the hard decisions on where to cut costs and produce savings. Someone who can help improve communications amongst our various boards and committees, foster teamwork and focus on common goals that are in the best interest of our town and residents. I spent my 35-year government career working on just these types of behaviors. I've spent the last 3+ years working here to foster that type of environment within the community. I'm not afraid to make the hard decisions. I understand that not everyone will always agree with every decision, but I am committed to always make informed decisions that are in the best interest of the community as a whole. I want to ensure that the select board remains vigilant in keeping down costs while still providing necessary services vital to the town, and that we work with the residents to build trust and create a positive, viable, and affordable community to be proud of.
First question came in, they set up a new moderator email account. That's what I needed. Question from one of the residents. What do you believe is the best process for expending funds from the unencumbered fund account, regardless of what department is requesting an unexpected appropriation? Second half of the question is, do you believe there should be a certain limit that requires approval from the taxpayers?
So as far as providing funds from the unassigned fund balance, is that
It's about expending
Expending
funds. Right.
okay? So my understanding, that should be the townspeople's decision, and it should be voted on if there's something that's large that is being requested, because it is their money and they need to make that decision.
Okay, so to just be specific, is there a dollar amount, like if it's a warrant article or some articles over, let's say, 10,000, or what dollar limit do you think the voters should? Because currently,
as a selectman, you can make a decision to transfer whatever amount you feel is relative to offset property taxes, and you don't require a selectmen's or a petition. So
Right.
at what dollar limit does and doesn't require more public input?
I think anything that would exceed $20,000, I mean, it's got to be really, it's a lot of money that belongs to the taxpayers. So I would entrust them to make that decision in a warrant article.
Humphrey.
Well, first of all, in order to spend unassigned fund balance should become a warrant article. Anything over and to me, as far as the limit goes, anything over and above the operating budget generally that goes into a warrant article would fall under the public's purview. I mean, this year alone, we had a $1,500 warrant article just for technical improvements. So the dollar amount isn't the most important piece. It's anything over and above the operating budget should be looked at as whether it should go into a warrant article and determine whether or not the public should vote on it. So, I mean, it could be a small amount. I think coming back to your comment, Chris, I know you mentioned earlier about a limit. To me, there's a capital improvement plan for anything that goes over $5,000 to $10,000 in excess cost, so that we spread that out over a number of years. But warrant articles, to me, it's coming out of an unreserved fund balance. It's a public vote, even at a small amount.
So to build on that question and go back to both of you, so do you feel that the selectmen should ask the voters on an annual basis how much portion of the undesignated fund balance should go into offset taxes, or should that just remain as a selectmen's? Because every November you set the tax rate. That's the one big question you get asked.
You're asking me first, or okay?
So my understanding is that we have a reserve in case of an emergency for our town, should there be some kind of natural disaster. And so we offset amounts for that. And you're asking, should we ask the voters to return the remaining amount through the bringing down the tax burden?
Well, because the question was, should you ask the voters to spend from that? Saying yes. I'm drilling down and asking the question, does that also apply to the authority you've already been granted? And that is to transfer every November when you set the tax rate along with the state.
To transfer to the tax, to bring
You
down
have
the tax.
unassigned fund balance.
Right.
You have the authority as the three selectmen to move some, all, or a portion of that to offset taxes.
Right.
Should the voters, should you even hold a public hearing before you move it to say to the voters, this is what we're thinking of doing?
To give it back to the taxpayers?
So use it
Yes.
to offset property taxes.
I would think that the taxpayers would like to reduce their taxes.
All right, first of all, we do have to have a capital reserve fund that's somewhere in the 10 to 15% range of the operating budget. We shouldn't exceed that. We should make sure that as much of that money can go back into tax, reducing taxes as possible. But at the same time, like I said, we also have a tax cap that we have to make sure that we stay under. This year, for instance, I know that we wanted to keep the tax cap down low, so initially, we went in looking at road maintenance and kept it down to a reduced amount to make sure that we stayed under the 1.5%. But when we found out we had additional revenues, those additional revenues helped us provide some additional funding that would mean we wouldn't exceed the tax cap. So the money went back into a warrant article to help with the roads. We also have in excess of we have $599,000 this year at the end of the year that was left over. A good portion of that amount needs to go back into offset taxes.
All right. The other question, and it's somewhat rhetorical, in that I think maybe you've already addressed it, but what things have you done in the past, probably the past 2 years, to prepare you for being selected?
Well, and many of my roles, and a lot of it has been in volunteering within the town, is just being able to work with people. And I think that's really important to communicate, to understand the issues at hand, to ask questions, to communicate the best answers that we have at that time. And that's what I stand on, is I believe that communication is very important along with these other financial decisions, but we are a town together. And we want to help each other in times that residents are having issues with, whether it's the roads in their area or feeling that they are overtaxed on their property tax, and being able to hear those individuals and their concerns, and being able to address that, working for the town and working with the people together with the departments and the residents.
Well, if we're focusing on the last couple of years, I've been on the budget committee for the last 2 years, and 2 years ago, I introduced the processes that we used at the shipyard for going over the history of expenditures and budgets, and I introduced the spreadsheets that we use to do that. Let's wait for it, Tom. I took that information and I put into those spreadsheets history of budgets and expenditures from 2015 up through this past year in 2020. And we utilize that as a process for determining where our budget should be in the future. All right. Anyways, it was a learning curve with the budget committee, and I've also gone through and shown the people within the budget committee how to take that information. I use the monthly expenditure sheets that we get from the town and convert them into reports that allow us to project what the expenditures are going to be for the year. And we've been able to come within about a 1% range to determine that. So it helps us forecast where we're going to be and what it should be for the upcoming year as well. I also help them address the changes in how we go about doing the budgeting process. 2 years ago, we made the suggestion that we do a joint meeting between the budget committee and the select board to meet with department heads. We did that for the first time last year, and we improved on that this year. This year, we also presented the fact that because we've had 2 years in a row of default budgets, which means that we couldn't go into new things that are necessary here in town, some of the new line items that might be necessary, that we needed to come in under a default budget this year with our operating budget to allow us to bring salaries up to speed where they need to be and make sure that that's accurate enough and easy for the budget committee and for the public to see what's being done, and that we're fiscally responsible. Now, by doing that the last 2 years, our total increase from the operating budget in 2019 to this year was only 0.73%. We were averaging about 4.5% to 5% a year increase prior to that. So that's what I've worked on to focus on those areas.
Ernie, did you want to check to see if there's any questions that come up through chat? Are there any questions for the candidates here in the room?
There was a Zoom link advertised that we were on it for 10 minutes and nobody listened to participate or anything. We thought it was a virtual meeting, so just if you have the Zoom mode, then you might have people out there.
We have Zoom here, plus we're using Gagnon.
Steve Gagnon with the live streaming.
He's actually set it up. We here are also participating.
If there was a link that was sent out that didn't seem to work,
Okay.
or at least it did work for us. Now, maybe other people haven't heard of it.
All right. Mr. Brown.
If I may, a question regarding to longtime volunteer service for the town. And the question would have to be prior to July of last year, what particular service to the civil structure of the town would you each provide? Not volunteer work, to the civil structure of the town itself.
to the civil structure, I think it's a little biased. We're not all part of the civil structure. We're part of a community. And I think it's imperative to know that we need to communicate and we need to work together, whether it is in a volunteer or it's as a person who works for the town. We all have our own views and it's important to assess them and make good, solid decisions on them. I've worked with many people within our homeschool community, as well as been available for the last 8 or so years at the elections, providing meals for our election workers and having opportunities for our homeschool children to be active in an election process. And in return, have been able to provide opportunities for statewide events for homeschoolers. So my volunteerism may not be in the civil structure, but it is with the people. And I have ears to hear and a voice to speak. And I am also a taxpayer in this town. And I know what it's like every time December and June rolls around. So I'm at the process in my life where I can step up and I can serve the public in a new way. I'm sorry, I will add, I mean, I do have a lot of financial background. My years in corporate have all been in the financial background. I'm very familiar and active with spreadsheets and analysis. I have done these things, deciding on what the forecast is for future expenditures as well as revenue and what that might look like and how that leads us as a community. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Well, here in the community, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I've had 35 years of federal service prior to coming here in the community and working. In the last 2.5, almost 3 years, I've been involved between the budget committee, the zoning board, the economic development committee as well. So in serving the community.
And can I just add one thing? I know that my experience is a lot in volunteerism. A lot of you know me from that. But volunteering and doing small things, I have not asked for $1 from this town as a financial support for our homeschool community. It has all been through donations and active service. And to me, that resonates more than just paying for things. When we can get a community involved to step up and help out one another. Thank you.
Communication between the board of selectmen and the townspeople is difficult. How would you as a BOS member improve that?
I totally agree. It's been a problem what we've had for many, many years. I have worked part-time for the recreation department, and it's always been one of those issues. How do we communicate to the people that there's events coming? And there are many ways to do that. It's just a matter of facilitating them and having proper people to address that and be consistent. I think we've lacked a lot of inconsistency with our Milton Gazette. A lot of people prefer to use Facebook, but there's a lot of people that don't use Facebook. I think signage is important. I think we need to update our signs. I think that we need to make sure that we're actively letting people know what's going on and not just depend on online materials to do that and platforms. So that is one of the things that I think is very essential to have some type of newspaper that can reach out to people on a monthly basis.
Well, I know right now we're in the process of trying to get digital signs to have out here in front of, in front of the townhouse and other areas that to make sure that we're able to keep the people driving by up to speed. As far as communications between the boards and committees, that's been such a struggle because we're also on the free access through Atlantic Broadband at this point in time. So we don't have the bandwidth necessary to keep the system up and running most of the time. It takes special phone calls to try to get Back Bay to clear it for us to be able to do that. And that's been the biggest struggle. I've had to do that as the budget committee chair. And because of it, it's the same type of thing as even today. Zoom's not operating properly at this point in time. So, I mean, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but we need our own channel which other towns are using, not just using the YouTube link to some social media aspect of things. If we have our own channel and we pay a small fee to increase the bandwidth here in town, then we will have a reliable service to make sure that every board and every committee is able to broadcast to the public. We do need to make sure that we keep Zoom up and running, because not everyone's going to be, obviously, live streaming is great to be able to see what's going on, but there's no interaction with that aspect of it. So we need to be able to have a channel for people to be able to communicate. I also think there needs to be an opportunity to have people send in comments and questions to one central location, either through Facebook and the town's webpage, or through email, to make sure that the questions get brought forward to the whichever board and committee that's for. And when we talk about public participation, because right now it's very limited, and I know being on the budget committee, I can probably count on these hands how many times people come to some of those meetings. But there are people that would be willing to ask questions if they knew that those questions would be read out and answered somehow at each of these boards and committees. I also think the communication between the boards and committees has got to be improved. We've got to bring boards and committees together to talk and make sure that we're focusing on similar goals for the town. Everyone's working hard. They're all trying to do the best, but sometimes we end up spinning our wheels because we're not communicating with each other on how and what we're working on. So to me, we need to bring that into this as well.
To follow up then on something that you stated, to get our own channel, the town would have to pay for additional bandwidth.
Yeah, it would be less than, it would be about $100 a month at the most. And considering we had $599,000 left over from the budget, I think $1,200 investment would be a well spent.
Okay, as the budget committee chairman, did you put that money in the budget?
There's money in the budget for technical improvements, and that would be a piece of it. And the other piece of that, to bring it back, Chris, it's a bottom line budget, and the money can be moved from wherever it needs to be done to be able to spend that little bit of money in there. So.
Other questions here in the room for our candidates? Let's see. Ernie, do we have any that popped up on the chat portion of Zoom?
No,
Okay. With that, I'll give each candidate 3 minutes to make a closing statement. Cover anything that you think you
Sure.
might have shared or whatever. Go ahead.
So as we just discussed about communication, that is one of the items that I have on my checklist, is to provide better communication with our Milton and Milton Mills residents. As we've learned through this past year's state of emergency, receiving communication from our town leaders has been a challenge. And with plans to upgrade our technology and supply roadside signage for our departments, hopefully the people of Milton will be more informed of any changes in our town and any updates in the future. I strongly encourage we as townspeople, and I'm guilty of it as well, that we need to become more involved with the concerns addressed for our town roads and infrastructure. As a small town, we still fall under state and federal regulations that is not under our control. Ultimately, the voters decide on major decisions to provide road maintenance and reconstruction, special services and amenities throughout our departments, as well as retaining our town employees by providing them competitive salaries and benefits. As a town, everyone has a role, and we each need to educate ourselves before filling in those circles on voting day. As your selectman, I will listen to your point of views, and together we will provide resolutions for our town issues. Thank you for your vote, and see you on March 9th.
All right. The training and mentoring I received during my career taught me, first and foremost, how to be a team player. Also taught me how to be an effective leader by leading by example. It's how to take negative situations and create some positive changes, how to be fiscally responsible, embrace teamwork to improve performance. So here in improving on our weaknesses within the town, I said, first and foremost, we need a community to trust in our decision-making. That starts by improving our communication with and commitments to the public. The public wants to be heard. To be successful, we need their input. We need their support and buy-in on how to rejuvenate Milton and Milton Mills. Boards, committees, and the town staff try their best. The select board, as our elected leaders, needs to take the lead in bringing everyone together to help foster a more collaborative and cooperative environment. One that improves communication, understanding, cooperation, and services to our community. We need to find ways to operate more efficiently and effectively to reduce costs. Sound financial goals for the town need to be established and enforced. Using past spending profiles, we can reduce or eliminate waste, identify actual needs versus wants, and establish a viable spending profile. We need to find ways of improving our infrastructure while still staying within a sound fiscal budget by establishing priority ranked projects and or applying for potential grants. Gaining public trust and getting public input and buy-in on specific projects is crucial to be successful. So about promoting our strengths here in town, we need to balance the protection of our natural resources, community needs, and foster sound economic development opportunities. We're in a prime location midway between the seacoast and the heart of the White Mountains. Milton offers great residential opportunities, and we have the potential to be a great location for new businesses. The Route 16 corridor coming together with Route 75 at exit 17 and Route 125 at exit 18 offer great commercial development opportunities that would greatly benefit the community without taking away from its rustic charm and scenery. This would diversify our tax base and generate revenue that offsets operating costs for necessary services for the town. We need to maintain, even enhance the scenic beauty and heritage of Milton and Milton Mills. That means ensuring that we keep our lakes and waterways pristine. It also means we need to work to preserve what we have for historical buildings and sites and find ways to promote these landmarks to the public to enhance the community. I want to see Milton and Milton Mills thrive. I want a community that not only makes the residents proud, but one which others strive to be a part of because of our heritage, our scenic beauty, our sound economic opportunities, and for our willingness to work together to affordably move us in the right direction. I believe that as your next selectman, I can be a valuable team member and a leader that this community needs to achieve the goals to make Milton and Milton Mills the place to be.
Thank you both for your time. Let's move on to the next race. We have certain limited amount of time. For the budget committee, 2-year position, 3-year position, Mike Folio is here, Mr. Carrier.
I'll see if he's out.
Okay. Mike, if you take the, why don't you go ahead with maybe a possible opening if you want. You're rather not here. Huh? Not here. Okay, then we'll move on. Louise LaPlante at Victoria, Finland. Nope, so nobody from trustee. Drew is not here for planning board, 3 years. Mr. Brown, Miss Libby, Miss Dougal, I don't know if Mr. Steer has joined us. If you take the podium, front table, please. Anthony Gagnon.
Care which seat you want to get. I don't care. Either one. Okay, up to you.
Anyone up here? Any of those 4 chairs? No. All right, planning board, okay. Ms. Brown, there's. You're in the building, you can either choose, it's a, what is it? Success is optional, you can either sit up front or. Wouldn't smell back, your call. Right. Starting on my left is Lynette McDougal, the other ladies, first, what you guys just working on site. Lynette, 2 minutes, opening statement, please.
Opening statement. I've been on the planning board for the past years. One of my greater accomplishments, I believe, was getting the planning board to set up internet access and recording of all the meetings so that everybody at home could always look at them and everything. That hadn't been done prior to that. And also I had them change the meeting, so we had a lot of consistency happen. My background was in software configuration management for 35 years. And it was in a lot of organization of software and technical data, and also doing network administration and that sort of thing. I was a team leader. I had 3 different sites I took care of, and we all had to work together. And I always wanted to have people voice information that was needed to make an honest decision. I am very scared right now, so if you hear shaking in my voice, that's because I'm scared. Let's see. The first year that I was here, as I stated, it was more just learning. There's so much to the planning board, but fortunately we have experts that are there to help us. Our town planner is the person we go to for all the details, legalities, things like that. And he reassures us and makes suggestions at all the meetings to keep us straight. So if you hear us change our mind on something, it's usually because there's some kind of new law or regulation or something that's changed. It's not because we're being frivolous with our answers. The second year that I was here, I finally started doing walkthroughs on properties and different projects that were coming up. One of the biggest one that came up was when we had Cheney decide he wanted to do a condo project. And that was quite exciting for the planning board because we had about 50 people show up at one time. And we were normally used to having either none to one person show up. So it was a time where I think all learned from it, that we have to listen to each other and possibly know that we have to go, if we're on a board, by regulations, even though our own personal thoughts may be different. And I think that's one thing we have to express to people. It's not always the answer people want to hear, but it's what we're guided by through regulations. My third year has been on the planning board. I think you'll hear this from many of the people on the planning board. It's been mainly CIP. We have been inundated with CIP, and we're unable to get so many things that need to be done and updated for the town. And the suggestion if we could have a specialized group just for the CIP and have different members from each group join that would give it a greater outlook throughout the town and have everybody's buy-in instead of doing it from waiting until you have to go to another board and another board and another board. I think that's about all I have to say. That's enough.
Hello, I'd like to introduce myself. Some of you know me. My name's Kim Libby. I live in Milton Mills. Some of you may know me as Kim Belanger. I was recently married last year, changed my name. I came here in 1996 and all 3 of my kids have gone to Newt. I served on the school board. When I ran for school board, nobody in town knew me. Nobody had a clue who I was. I had never run on a town board before. I was encouraged to do it. I actually won. I think it was because my name was the first one on the ballot. But I did school board for 3 years, and then I did an additional appointed year when someone had to leave. I was also the representative to the budget committee for a year. So I got pretty involved. Over the course of the last 20 years, I've been here 26, I've served on numerous boards in the town, not necessarily elected boards, but a lot of town appointed committees and things like that. I'm currently a member of the Government Efficiency Task Group, which the Board of Selectmen basically determined that we needed someone to look at efficiency in government in our town, which I think is a great thing. So I've got on this board. My time on the board, we have spent working with the Milton Economic Development Committee on a survey to go out to the town. The survey basically is looking at our planning, our zoning, our economic development, what direction the town should go forward to. So I had been speaking to a few people. I've been attending quite a few Board of Selectmen's meetings, and I'm looking at the planning board, as Lynette said, the planning board is going to try and not split, I guess, but they're going to try and have a CIP designated people as a CIP board. I think that part of what the selectmen want to do, part of what the planning board wants to do, our government efficiency board, the economic development committee, we're all looking at what's going to happen in Milton in the next 10 to 20 years as far as development. Is it all infrastructure? Is it all building? And I look at it from the aspect of the more people that we can get on board to be able to work with the other boards, as our selectmen, current selectmen and future selectmen have said, will be better for us. A little bit about my background. I'm a graduate of Portsmouth Naval Shipyard apprenticeship. I was an industrial equipment mechanic for 12 years. I have a lot of experience with New Hampshire RSAs and New Hampshire law. I worked as a mediator and an educational advocate for 25 years. I like paperwork, I guess. I think planning board would be very interesting. I know that we, as a town, need new people on the boards because it's the same 10 people that always volunteer for everything, and we need new people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gagnon.
Hello, I feel like I'm the new kid on the block. Everyone's been in town for like 50 years. My name is Anthony Gagnon. I'm running for planning board for Milton and Milton Mills. My wife Joanne and I, we've lived in Milton for 4 years. We moved here so that my elderly parents could move in with us and we could take care of them. Although we've only been in Milton for 4 years, we have a history in a local surrounding area. We lived in Barrington for close to 20 years before we moved to Milton. I grew up in Barrington. We both graduated from Spalding. After high school, I went in the military for 4 years, and I've got a total of about 24 years at the shipyard. I feel like it's old home week for the shipyard.
It
too,
is.
coming in. I used to work for Humphrey.
He was my apprentice instructor.
So I've got like 24 years at the shipyard too. During all that time, my wife and I, we have raised 3 children. They're all adults now. We got one that's a teacher. They're all doing fine. Since moving here, we've undertaken to improve some of our property. We've done some clearing and we've started a small farm where we now raise chickens, goats, rabbits, and we're looking to expand that as well. Since moving here and doing all that, we've decided that we want to retire here in Milton. And since we want to be here for the long term, I figured, it's time to volunteer and do something. So here's a few reasons that I want to be involved in the planning board. I want to serve in the local community. Like I said, I know what it's like to serve my country, both in the military and as a civilian. I'm pushing 30 years now, civil service. And I want to serve locally. I want to give back to the town, and I want to get to know more of the people in the town and the workings of the town government. I want a voice in the planning process of the town, to have a say in the decisions made within the town and be able to present some new points of view and new ideas. Goes to what you were saying with the same people always running everything. Our current tax structure relies on prudent planning of our town resources, and I want to help in that effort. I want to focus on the reducing of taxes and going forward, working to increase new businesses being able to come into Milton and Milton Mills that would provide a new tax revenue options and helping to offset any future tax increases. I've been interested in local government for a while, and I thought this is the right time now for me to actively seek to help the town. I've never served on a town board or commission. This is new to me, but I believe the best way to learn about the town government is to sign up for a position that I have a strong interest in, such as the planning board. And my goal there would be to utilize the skills that I do have to help in the decision process with other planning board members. On-the-job training is not new to me, and I'm sure there's a lot of you who have learned jobs and board positions with on-the-job training. Thank you.
Okay, Larry Brown. I am the other side of it, in that I'm the one who has been on a variety of boards for the last 20 years. I knew Bruce Woodruff when he was still working for Dover, and our esteemed moderator when he had black hair.
Oh,
Like Nick, I've been in member or chair of the Conservation Commission, the Budget Committee, the Planning Board, the Library, ZBA. And I've also been a 3-term state rep, municipal and county government. I was involved in writing some of the law that we are using today in the town. I was also the chair of the Stratford Regional Planning Executive Commission. And I was on the planning board on Dawson Street when Betty White was still there, who basically started the planning board. You can talk about a new broom sweeping clean, and the advantage of an old broom is that it knows the dirt in the corners. The planning board does not keep business out of Milton. Topography, flat land, transportation routes, population density, infrastructure determine where major retail and industrial commercial business comes. The new construction at Dunkin' Donuts at exit 17 at what is we're calling it now? We'll call it the Ray's Marina East is a result of the depression of 2008 bankruptcies and bargain basement sales. All of them use small retail development space. We are not major industrial business. That is going to continue to be the pattern. That is the pattern we find also up at the industrial park. All land use and zoning comes from state law and town meeting ordinance. The planning board is just a pass-through organization. We do not make zoning law. We do not have enforcement powers. No one owns their property from the center of the earth to the farthest star without some buffer of community interest. And that includes regulations on the, well, let me use one for example. The new exit 17 gas station. They have put in protections for the Great Brook. They put in safe entrance and exit, and they have put in fire suppression and spill containment. And I don't want less from any other person who comes to the planning. We had, for example, Mighty Joe. We voted against Mighty Joe for expansion, and we voted for them for accessory uses. The important thing is to pay attention to the regulations that control zoning in town.
Ernie, is Paul Steer joining us at all by Zoom?
I don't see him here, no.
Okay. That's fine. I don't have any questions for school board members and selectmen. I don't have any questions directly for the planning board. Is there anyone in the room that would have a question? Not seeing any, I will come up with a very quick question. What do you think is the #1 priority of the planning board in 1 minute or less? Who wants to go first?
Oh, that's one just go in order.
I was going to catch you by surprise, and I didn't want her to hit me later on with a
chicken eggs.
I know, I'm scared, Sid, I'm scared. You gotta keep me to 1 minute, Chris. I don't know, that might be, that might be difficult.
That's what I'm saying. Give us one.
1 minute. One thing.
priority of the
Okay,
board.
the planning board needs to look at the information that's gonna come out of this survey between the Economic Development Committee and the Government Efficiency Board, that committee. Because there's so much information that the planning board is going to be able to use to look towards their next step.
Okay, I think one of the biggest things that I found with the planning board in many of our organizations is a lack of planning. And what I mean by that is we don't plan consistently. We lack certain standards and certain things across the board. For instance, you have these wonderful lists that we should be incorporating into our work and everything. That's something I'd like to see in the future. Really take a main view and use is on the planning board, on BOS, all of our boards, for consistency across the board, so we know what to expect from it.
Anthony?
I can do that in one word, consistency.
Yeah.
Planning board needs to be consistent with all their answers, with all the decisions that they make, consistent all across the board.
Lynette touched on it, and that is the planning board would like to get out from under the CIP. The CIP is mandated by the state overarching plan. It can be handed off to another committee. We still need to work, as you saw, we have a solar ordinance coming. We have a site plan regulation. We have the natural resources. And those are the tasks that the planning board should get back to. We are entirely too often a reactive board rather than a planning board. Second thing that's happening is we are starting to become the third ring of development. We are getting bypassed from Somersworth and Rochester. We are going to see an uptick in our applications, and we need to have structure in place to do it.
Again, I'll turn it back to the here. Anyone have any questions? Not seeing any. If I'll give everyone 2 minutes for if there's something that you got cut short of the opening or something else you'd like to touch on.
I don't know.
Okay, I think one of the things I enjoyed most about the planning board is being able to throw around information, data, so forth, and see all the different regulations. The one thing that I hated about it was there was no introductory. What the heck do you do on the planning board? You know, what are the things we're looking at? What do we actually get to make decisions on? That was the hardest thing. A lot of good.
That's why I didn't sit there. I have to agree with Mr. Brown. I've been doing some reading on the uptick of the outlying towns and building permits and all sorts of things that planning boards are involved in the towns that are well within a 25-mile radius of us have tripled during COVID. And I think that's partially because people just are building and people are moving and people don't want to be in cities. They want to be in nice country towns like we have here. And I think we are going to see an explosion in the next couple of years in requests for building permits and requests for looking at different types of expansion in buildings, townhouses, elderly housing, condominiums, little houses. Is that what they call them? The little houses?
Tiny houses.
Tiny houses. So I definitely think that planning board is somewhere that I'd like to be and like to further my knowledge. A few other boards I'd like to serve on, so maybe I'll kind of see how I do. And if I don't, I still will be involved. You'll still all see me at the selectmen's meeting and at town meetings bugging people. So, but thank you very much.
Like a lot of people, I often wondered about the mechanics of the decision-making process in town and how they're done. In a lot of cases, not always, I found myself not to be quite in agreement with how things are run in town. So with that thought, I decided, there's no better ways to make changes and to get involved. So that's why I'm running for planning board. I want to help with the decision-making process. I want to help with businesses to come into town. I want to help with residents being able to do things easier. I feel residents should have more of a say in what they're allowed to do on their own property. I build things on my property to the extent that I actually own a sawmill. I make my own lumber. I am a certified soft lumber grader because the town said that I had to have graded lumber. So I became a grader to be able to grade my own lumber, to be able to build barns for my animals. That's kind of a cumbersome process to go through, but I did it just so I can build it. And I think we should be able to make things easier for people to be able to build things on their own property. So that's why on March 9th, vote Anthony Gagnon Planning Board.
You come and saw our lumber, right?
The town's obligations are to health, safety, and welfare. Having a certified lumber grader protects me from junk lumber. I like that. The bill that Kim was talking about is 586, which in 2 years, if it passes, is going to include low-income housing when it comes to over 55 specialized housing. That's going to have an impact on school districts, and it's also going to bring population density to town. What the other point she was covering was ADU, which is the accessory dwelling unit. That is also going to have an impact on McMansions when it's too big for just the two of you and you want grandma. I will tell you very briefly that there are fewer than 20 properties in this town that pay over $20,000 a year in taxes. Only 5 pay over $50,000 in property tax, and only 2 pay over $100,000 in property tax. That's why I said that it is very likely that we are not going to be a major supplier of massive retail. It's going to be business. If that was an answer to a single question, do I still have time for closing statement? I will start from that, which is the town's master plan says we support the growth of business and industry, which complements the town's natural resources, infrastructure, and environment at a time when the nature of work is changing. That's already in the master plan. It comes out of this book, which was 200 pages when I started. It's 500 pages now. If you go to chapter 673, you will find what the duties of planning are. Personally, when the 60s were ending and I was young, all of the heroes of the 60s were dead or killed. Robert Kennedy has stuck with me. He said, "We are called to be the trustees of the world that comes after us." For me, that is the New Hampshire, which gave my father the opportunities that brought me here. Again, you're called to be the trustee to the world that comes after us. And if you're on the planning board, you are called to the 500 pages of New Hampshire planning and land use regulation. That's it.
Thank you. We, Ernie, before I let everyone go, do we have anything else from the Zoom? There are no chat, specifically, I guess, any chat questions you want?
No, there's nothing other than, someone said, please introduce yourselves more loudly and clearly so they can understand.
Okay. Good.
Wow.
All right, then you are excused, and we'll move on to the next race, and that would be for Public Works Director, Mr. Andrew Rawson and Mr. Patrick Smith. 2-minute opening statement. Mrs. Rossi.
Thank you, Chris, for moderating today. Good afternoon. My name's Andrew Rawson, and most of you know me by my position as selectman here in Milton. I became a selectman in 2014, and the tax rate was $29.40 per 1,000. And today it's $22.16. That didn't come easy, but being fiscal responsible, that's where we are at today. In my first year of being a selectman, we had to fight off the landfill that would destroy our small quaint town. I played a huge role in building our playground at our town beach. I've helped write the first European NIAID warrant article to help preserve our lakes. I've lived in Milton for over the past 20 plus years, and I currently have my CDL license, my principal operator's New Hampshire Solid Waste certificate, and I'm currently working on my road scholar certification that I'm only 2 hours away from completing due to the pandemic. I've decided to run for Public Works Director because of this work that I love to do. I've got 16 years of municipality work. The last 5 years I've worked for the state of New Hampshire Department of Transportation. In my own opinion, I feel that the current DPW director is lacking leadership. We currently have a $260,000 grader, and I haven't seen it once do any curb cutting in Milton. My road, which is Tenerife Road, has water running down the middle of the road because the ditch lines haven't been curb cut. We have numerous roads that are overgrown and in need of desperate attention. We have numerous driveway culverts collapse on Silver Street and the culvert maintenance throughout the whole town. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of turnover and help. In my opinion, this is due to the leadership. First on my agenda, we will be working a 5-day work week throughout the year. Currently, the town's summer hours are Monday through Thursday during the summer, with no staff being available on Friday. Secondly, I would be putting in a compost pile at the transfer station. This would be a win-win for the town and the taxpayers. Also, it would be helpful with our MS4 regulations with the state by keeping leaves out of the lake and giving the taxpayers a place to bring them. I do not support pay-as-you-throw program as our current DPW director does. The pay-as-you-throw program entails the taxpayers have to purchase town trash bags in order to bring them to the transfer station. If the road construction article passes, I'll be working on Ford Farm Road and parts of Tenerife, and moving forward over onto Bowling Road by putting in the right spec gravel down and forming the road back with a crown so the water can run off into the ditches. Working for the state, we have stringent rules about keeping the roads plowed for public safety. And I would bring those policies to Milton, keeping our roads plowed and our sidewalks cleared. It is a very important responsibility that I would take very seriously, and I would be out working every storm with the crew to be sure that we are working to the best of our abilities. Everything will be put out to bid. This practice is not being done as we speak. This will allow to get the maximum amount of work done, and it's the right way to spend the taxpayers' money. My ultimate goal is to listen to the taxpayers, maintain and fix our failing infrastructures, to get more sustainable budget, and to have a new leadership that will work with the department heads and select board, and most importantly, the residents of Milton. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a fat 3 minutes, so I'll give you the equal time.
My name is Patrick Smith, and I'm running for re-election to the Public Works Director. I'm asking for your vote on March 9th. I was born and raised in Milton Mills. My family has resided in Milton for several generations. I'm married to my wife Pamela of 33 years. I have 2 children, 4 grandchildren. I served in the United States Navy in the 1980s, and I'm currently a VFW member with post 8393 here in Milton, and I'm a member of the Milton Christian Fellowship Church here in Milton. I've been with the Public Works Department for over 24 years, of which I've been the director for 21 years. I've established a team environment resulting in high morale and a high quality of work. I've proven to be a good steward with the responsibilities and budgets entrusted to me. I have shown my ability to manage budgets, build roads, maintain buildings and grounds, and provide a superb level of maintenance for our police, fire, and highway vehicles. I pay attention to detail, and I'm conscious of the appearance of the town. I take great pride in our town. I love Milton, and I love serving the public. This has not only been a job for me over the 24 years, it's been my life. I will continue to serve the citizens with diligence and put the interest of the town first. I appreciate the residents of Milton and Milton Mills, and I thank you for your support. I ask you to re-elect Patrick Smith as your Public Works Director on March 9th. Thank you.
First question I have. This goes to Andy. Your signs throughout town for road agent call for new leadership. Over the years, you've been very vocal on social media websites as a selectman. As a selectman, you know that access to government buildings is controlled by the selectmen. This past year, the selectmen voted to control access to town hall, yet you failed to support town employees on these social media platforms, which are being criticized for being closed or by appointment only. Can you explain if this is the same type of failed leadership you are proposing for this particular department?
Well, I take the pandemic very seriously. And we've had quite a few bouts with COVID-19 through the town. And we have to be very careful. We have very few unfortunately workers that work for the town of Milton. And we had to go to the current situation because if one person in this building gets the COVID, the whole building is wiped out. And so that's why unfortunately we had to go to the current situation. I think that is being responsible. This isn't going to last forever. And as a community, we're tight, and we'll get through it. But that's why this building is where it's at right now. We have to protect our employees.
Chris, may I
Yes.
respond to that also?
Yeah.
So last year, at the end of February, the beginning of March, I received a phone call from the town hall to close down all operations due to COVID. One of the operations that I was requested to close down was the transfer station. And my response was that you're not going to do anything to keep the public safe by closing the transfer station. You're only going to cause more issues if people have to house their trash at their home for a period of time. I did then respond back with a plan to open the transfer station at a minimal process with just collecting MSW and coal mingles. Everything else was shut down at that time in order for the people to at least get rid of their household trash and not create another public hazard in their homes.
The second question kind of builds off of how you answered.
Because I can't hear you very well. I'm sorry.
Thank you for giving me to pick that up. I appreciate that. The question is, with 500,000 deaths caused by COVID-19, do you or do you not consider the virus serious? So, you okay with that?
You want me to start with that?
No. Did you hear?
You said that you want to know if we take the virus serious.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll let.
After having COVID, yes, I do take it serious. COVID is not a very good virus to get. I was very, very sick with it. So yes, it's serious. Yes, we've done what we need to do to keep our employees safe at Public Works Transfer Station, and along with the public with masks and shields and gloves and hand sanitizer. So the answer is yes, I take it serious.
Andy?
Well, yeah, I take it very serious. You know, I've worked very closely with our town administrator, being one of the select board members, and the other select board members. You know, we've implemented, the rules and regulations for the buildings. And, you know, I faithfully wear my mask. Not right now because I'm talking, but I faithfully wear my mask. And, you know, like I said, you know, this is an unfortunate, disease, but we're going to get through it. And if we just all can work together, I realize that it can be, might take a little more of your time up from doing things from here or there, but that's why we have these rules in place at the town building. So I do take it serious.
Any, I don't have any other questions prepared. Does anyone here in the room have a question? Mr. Bollier?
Mike Lou, you had said that you have 2 more hours to get your road certification.
Mhm.
What makes you think that being new to everything's actually, all your licensing certifications brand new, makes you think that you could do a better job than someone who's done it for 21 years?
I never said that, first of all, I never said I could do it better, okay? First of all, my licenses aren't new. I've held a waste license for the city of Portsmouth 10 years ago, a level 4 operator's license. I just got it renewed. I work for the state of New Hampshire. I've taken numerous T-square classes. Unfortunately, the pandemic rolled around, and I haven't been able to get my road scholar license. But the state has that option for its employees to do. And why not further your education if you can? I just know that I would do certain things different than what we're currently doing, and that's why I'm running. So I appreciate the
Could you
question.
elaborate on the things you would do different?
I certainly would. For one, when you're building a road, okay, you got to have the right foundation underneath it. And unfortunately, we haven't been doing it. We haven't been putting the right foundation under new roads that we've built, okay? If you just go up Tenerife Mountain Road, you're gonna see a new section that's 3 or 4 years old, all right? And it's all blown out, all right? And that's because the right material wasn't put down on that road when it was built. And I know that for a fact. And these are the things, this costs a lot of money, and the town doesn't have endless resources to keep fixing roads that aren't built right. And so that's one of the things that I'll make sure that's done right is when we go to fix our infrastructure. That's just one thing.
Can I respond to his comment on the road, on Tenerife Road? First of all, I don't know that he knows what's in that road, because when we boxed that road out, we started off with a geotextile on the bottom, and we have a foot of stone on top of the geotextile with another layer of geotextile, 18 inches of 6-inch minus bank run, and up to 6 inches of 3/4 inch crush before we paved it. There's also drainage in that area that he's talking about that is embedded in the road bed to try to drain off the water. In front of Mr. Rosson's house, there's a series of springs in the road that come off the mountain, which causes an issue. We've also had that, as you know, Mike, up by your house, when we ended up boxing that road out, there's a series of springs there that has makes issues with the road. So I disagree with him on the proper materials in the road. Again, you know, we do what we can do with what we have to do with. If we have $100,000 for a piece of road, we put $100,000 in that piece of road, and we go as far as the $100,000 allows us to go, and that's where we stop.
Questions from anyone else?
Oh, just curious, what you might see the biggest challenges for the DPW department over, say, the next 3 to 5 years?
Could you say that a little louder, please? I couldn't hear you.
What do you see the biggest challenges in the next 3 to 5 years in the Department of Public Works?
I think we have two challenges. I think infrastructure of our roads is one of them. We haven't been receiving proper funding to keep up with the infrastructure of our roads. And the other challenge I see is hiring. It's not as easy to hire a CDL driver now as it used to be. They need to be certified drivers. And I was looking at that the other day. It's like $7,500 to go to a class to be CDL certified for an A, Class A. So yeah, I think that those are the two main things. I think help, we haven't been able to have a full staff for almost 3 years now. We're currently still down 2 CDL drivers, a transfer station attendant, and a government buildings worker. And that's been quite a challenge. And it's also creates a challenge to try to continue to provide all the services that the public request when you don't have a full crew or the manpower to split up to do the things that need to be done.
Yeah, I think just catching up on all the work that really needs to be done. And I you know, if I'm chose, you know, as your new DPW director, you will see me out there lugging brush. It's what I do today. It's what I do for DOT. I don't have a problem with going out and picking trash on roads. We do it on a daily basis with DOT on our downtime. So catching up on the work and, you know, hiring help. You know, Pat does make a good point on hiring help, but you know, Milton pays a pretty good wage now for help, and you know, we still go through a lot of help down at the Public Works garage, and you know, one makes me feel like leading towards the leadership down there, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running. Is to retain help, treat people like they want to be treated and like I want to be treated, you know, and so so keeping help down there is a big deal. I don't think it has anything to do with money. I just think it has something to do with leadership. So that's why I'm running.
So to respond to that, if you don't mind, leadership starts at the top. There's the top, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen. Okay. So leadership starts at the top, and when you do have poor leadership at the top, it does tend to trickle down, but we don't let that affect us at Public Works Department. The reason why we've lost people, I had 2 10-year guys that left. They were offered $6 more an hour to go someplace else with the same benefits package. I'm not going to keep them. They're young guys. They're in their early 30s, and they're still trying to raise a family. And if they can grab $6 more an hour to go someplace else, they're gone. The reason we can't bring people in is because CDL drivers with any kind of skill at all, when I interview them, they're looking at 22, 23 to start. We were paying 15. We pay now 17, 18 if we can get them in, 19 if we can get it approved, or 19.50 if we can get it approved from the Board of Selectmen. So as far as leadership starts at the top. And again, I've asked, and you've probably heard me in numerous meetings, in public meetings, I've asked the Board of Selectmen to lead by example. And I'm sorry to say that I've been disappointed in that area also, because I don't believe that the Board of Selectmen has led by example. The other part of the hiring problem was they froze hiring last year. Couldn't hire, had to ask permission at the end of the year to try to bring somebody in at this part of this time of the year, which I finally got permission to do that. So as far as the work goes, obviously, Mr. Rawson doesn't know what it takes to be a public works director, because a lot of times you don't have time to be out there running brush with the guys. You got to go inspect driveways, and you got to go handle situations at the beach or at a building when there's an issue. There's different aspects that you got to deal with, not just roads every day. You know, he did mention that we don't, that there's plenty of roads that need brush cutting. We mow the roads every year. Anybody that lives out here in town sees the mower going by every year. We mow the roads every year to keep the brush down, so that we don't have to send 5 guys out to cut. We send 1 guy out to mow. So we streamline it.
We've got to move along because we are, still have to get to the school board. So, Andy, 3 minutes, final comments.
Well, I'll make it real short here. Thank you, Chris. In closing, I have no hidden agendas. I will be transparent with each and every one of our residents, and I'll work very closely with the select board to resolve any issues with our town infrastructure. I'll be a team player working beside my crew on a daily basis to get the work done in Milton that desperately needs attention. The scare tactics are over. Today, I will make a pledge that I will not take a raise in my first term to prove to each and every one of you that I'm not just here for the paycheck. In my first year, I will make public works budget more sustainable for our residents of Milton. The current budget is close to $1 million, and we can do better than that. And without getting rid of any services, I will look at any open positions, and if they do not need to be filled, I will not do so. I am ready to work hard for the people of this town, new leadership for Milton's future, and I'll be honored to have your vote for Andy Rawson on March 9th at the Newt High School. Thank you.
So again, I take great pride in this town. I've lived in this town my whole life. I've volunteered a number of times for different things. I volunteer my crew and myself on Saturday events for roadside cleanup. I've also volunteered my personal equipment, my nights and my weekends to renovate a softball field for the high school girls softball team, which was approximately $80,000 in donation and in-kind services. Organized department heads to repair and paint the second story of the Milton Free Public Library, nights and weekends. Volunteered for the food pantry, the We Care Food Pantry, raised over 1,600 pounds of food and over $800 in cash donations, collected toys for the kids, volunteered to cook for breakfast with Santa, revitalized the Veterans Park downtown with donations from different businesses. Also volunteered my equipment to install the electric and the water shut off, assisted the Casey Road Committee with a parking lot at no cost, worked with the TPPA, the Three Ponds Protection Agency, for rain gardens at the town beach. And I also established a good working relationship with the Milton School District and donated a truck for the maintenance department for plowing one year when they had issues with their trucks. I'm dedicated to the town of Milton. I love this town. I am dedicated to serving the citizens of this town. And again, I take great pride in what I've done. I've built that department up from basically nothing when I took over to what it is today. And I'm proud of what I've done. And I ask you to re-elect me Public Works Director on March 9th. And I promise that I will continue to serve the citizens diligently and to the best of my ability with the things that the public gives me to work with.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Moving on to the next race, supervisor checklist, Elizabeth Baker. Louise LaPlante has joined us. Okay. We're agreeing to it. You have the floor.
Okay, my name is Elizabeth Baker, although I'm sure all of you know me as Betsy. And you probably mostly know me as the director of the Milton Free Public Library. But I have lived in Milton for the past 27 years. I brought my children up here, and as a consequence, I volunteered in the schools and in the town in many capacities. And I did so because I wanted to be a problem solver. And last fall, when I started hearing these rumblings that there were problems with the electoral system, rather than sitting by and shaking my fist, I decided that I wanted to be a problem solver there as well. So I called Karen, and honestly, I thought I was going to be on the other side of the hallway working at the polls, but Karen asked me to join her with the supervisor of the checklist. So I was there for the primary, and then for the general election for the president. And during that time, we registered over 1,400 people. This year, this year we only have one election, but we also do have the purge of the rolls, which is making sure that all of the people that are registered are Milton voters. And so that will take a little bit of time. And so I came here today just to make sure that if anyone did have any questions, that I would be available.
Can I just clarify, when you use the term word purge, I didn't want the voters to think that we're gonna go to zero number of people on the list. It's only, we clean up the list of people who have moved to other communities,
Yes,
passed away.
I think I'm repeating from somebody else.
Yeah, no, purge is the correct term, but it has a connotation with the general public that,
Yeah, then we'd have no taxpayers.
right, that they'd all have to come and re-register the next election on March 9th, and that's not the case at all. So. Any questions?
All right,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right. Treasurer for 1 year, Mackenzie Campbell. Mackenzie's not here. Trustee of trust funds, Marion's not here. Zoning board of adjustment, Larry's here, but we've always heard from Larry. So we're gonna move on to the school board, just so that we make sure we can get that in. If Larry would like to come out and at the end of that, discuss the ZBA, we're gonna go with that. But for school board, candidates, Lynette McDougal, Abigail Looney, Doug Shute, Travis Corvo, Donald Diamante Jr., John Gagner, if John's here in the room. You can do your best to spread out.
Right where you're going. You go first.
Well, that's your-
Put the best one right in the center.
Yes.
Holy mackerel.
All right. We start first with Lynette.
Rat.
Well, you're on the top of the ballot.
Oh, who did that?
No, I'll stick with my modus operandi and start with my left, and that would be Mr. Shute. Opening statement, 2 to 3 minutes, please.
Okay, the name is Douglas H. Shute. I've lived in New Hampshire all my life, but except for 6 years, served 4 of them in the Air Force. I moved to Milton in 1976 when we bought our home. My wife Nancy of 50 years worked at the Milton Elementary School for 29 years before she retired. Our 3 children and 1 grandchild graduated from Newton. Right now, we have a The grandchild's still attending Newton. I've been a selectman. I've been a budget committee member. I've been an ambulance crew member, and I did belong to the JC. I'm in my 7th year as a school board member and also a lifetime VFW member. I was a part of the separation of, when we get to this part about the schools, it isn't just about it was a group thing, okay? So don't take it wrong. It couldn't have been just because there's 5 of us. I was part of a separation of the Milton and Wakefield Joint 64. When the SAU separated from Milton, I went smoothly for Milton, but Wakefield is still having a problem. When we did the renovation, this does pertain to me. At the new SAU building, I volunteered over 80 hours of my personal time to help with the carpentry jobs, the mudding and the painting. We have made, this is the school board as a whole, not just me, we made several much needed improvements in our schools that had been postponed, such as the air handler MES. We fixed it. The culvert and tide area at the area for the kindergarten entrance, we fixed it. We tied the exit ramp at MES, fixed it. The new secure entrance at both MES and New, and we tied the area at the middle school and the new library that shuts section in the front. I'm retired. I've devoted many hours to reading, studying, and going to workshops to fulfill my school board commitments. My is to offer the best possible education our students with a minimum impact to the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Abigail?
Hi, I'm Abigail Rooney. My husband and I bought our first home 19 and a half years ago on Main Street in Milton Mills. And about 5 years ago, we actually moved out to Governor's Road in Milton. We've absolutely loved being a part of the community. So glad to be raising my girls here. We have the 2 girls, they're 14 and 17. So I just really love this community. It's a lot. I grew up in Barrington, so I really like that small New Hampshire town. It's very nostalgic actually living here. My education and background are in accounting. And I actually spent 10 years as financial administrator for a private school. I've worked for numerous nonprofits. So I am no stranger to working with budgets, especially really tight ones. I also have served this town as your state representative in the New Hampshire legislature for the 2019 to 2020 term, and really look forward to continuing to serve the community in this new capacity.
Donald?
Yes. My name is Don Diamond. On the ballot is Donald C. Diamond Jr. I gave them my legal name. I've lived in this community with my family. Well, this is our 23rd year. We raised our daughter here, thought this would be a great community to do it in, and it has been a great community to do so. My daughter graduated from Newt High School, and I am a New Hampshire native. At least 5 generations of my family in this state. I'm rather proud of that. I served in the U.S. military, United States Army as an infantryman. I was proud to do that as well. It was a great honor. And I was a graduate of Spalding High School, graduate of the University of New Hampshire. I have spent my life's work as a network engineer. My life's work has been in solving complex problems. I have also served on the boards of a nonprofit motorized recreation group and as the executive board of the regional motorized recreational group for the New England area. I have experience with planning and budgeting for those organizations and working with government groups. I've been to Washington, D.C. to work with senators and congressmen. I've worked within the state. I volunteered with the New Hampshire Fish and Game and helped to run some events with them. So I have a great deal of experience with volunteering. I have experience with planning and budgeting, and I would like to bring that to the school board here in Milton. I believe that we can do better I believe that we can try and do better for our children to give them the best possible experience in our schools. And I also believe that we can focus and look at providing taxpayer relief as well, while still providing the best possible education for our children. And I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Travis Corvo. I've been active with the school board meetings as a member. I've attended the majority of them over the last 2 years. I've been told I need to smile more by someone in the public. I told them that I don't like to smile because it does give you wrinkles.
But he smiles.
I do smile. I'm married to a new graduate. We bought our home in Milton going on 3 years. I grew up in Lebanon, right across the pond. I do have 3 children. One is serving active duty in the military. One is a healthcare worker, and my youngest is working in a school district, and she is also a graduate of Newt. I served in the military for 15 years, and then from there I went to work at the Stratford House of Corrections, and now I work in cybersecurity.
Hello, my name's Lynette McDougall. I hope my voice doesn't shake this time. What I'd like to say is I am not a resident of New Hampshire as far as being here all my life. What I am is someone from California moving to the Northeast, and I absolutely love it up here. I've had 5 children, one we adopted, and I've worked in the school system with children that had learning disabilities for a couple of years. And what I experienced was the teachers don't get paid enough. They give their own money, their own time, all of these things. And I learned that specialized education is so important that people don't realize what it can do for these children. I think what I see in schools here in Milton is kind of sad, because I think we should be standing behind them more. I think that they need to improve. I think we ought to be creative. It's really good that we have a lot of backgrounds here that have finance and so forth, but I think we're having to look beyond that and look at some more creative ways that not only can our kids get a good education and be at the top, not at the bottom of the education system, and also get some trade school training, something I think would be very important. Not all kids want to go on to college. So those are sort of the things I'm pushing for. Thank you again, and I think that's enough.
Me. Hi, everyone. My name is John Gagner, and this year I'm on ballot candidate for one of the 2 vacant 3-year school board positions. New Hampshire School Board Association lists one of the most important functions of a school board is to assist in schools in providing appropriate educational opportunities to our children. They also stress that it's vital to maintain that all board decisions and actions of individual board members should be prioritized for what's best for student achievement. My decision to run for this position this year came from the realization that we can do much better than we have been. Not only can we prioritize what's best for our students, but I believe that we can do it as a whole community, and that we can do it with the taxpayers in mind, as most people up here have said tonight. I believe that the current school board has done a great job this year with the warrant articles, and I think that we need to be mindful of that constantly. That's what I hope to bring to this board if elected, reason between unsupportable and unsustainable spending and a quality education. As many others in this town have been in recent years, most of you have come to know me as one of the school board's biggest critics. Not that I don't have my eyes on the board of selectmen. It's you, Andy. That's a joke, don't worry. At any rate, I would like to be able to apply my previous experience in non-educational administration to this position if elected, and spend time with other members really combing over every single opportunity to not only do what's best for our students' education, but will also allow us, this community, to strive and thrive in an extremely difficult climate. It's up to a school board alone to adopt policy, and I think that the adoption of any policy should be met with a true understanding of what the policy actually is at its bones, and a true discussion of how that policy can affect any lives. A school board needs to be fluid movement of ideas and voices to build the environment that best contributes to the development of our students. That environment only comes with the kind and polite discussion of ideas between people who share the same goal. Our focus needs to be on how to best help and support the students of Milton schools so they can reach and exceed their known potential. This requires a thoughtful study, willingness to engage in very difficult discussions, and yes, to even admit to being wrong and not insisting on being right, and to have those ideas prevail and not just the ones who are said with the loudest voice. The reality is that we're fighting a long-standing notion of what's best that aren't always what's most beneficial. We can say what we will, we can say that we'll get what we put into it out of any infrastructure until we're blue in the face, but there'll always be room for improvement. We need to listen to our parents, listen to our teachers, listen to our students, to taxpayers, bus drivers, and we need to listen to people on Facebook too. We need to welcome any and all opportunities to investigate them with an open mind, willing to change. We can't be stuck in the mud of the past when it means the detriment of the future of Milton students. With a global pandemic, the federal government is releasing aid to schools across the country, and I want to make sure that any and all aid that we get is invested into our buildings and students in the most beneficial ways consistent with applicable laws. Additionally, that pandemic has hit the pockets of more than 75% of Americans who have felt some kind of economic impact. In previous years, some of the warrant articles that were presented would potentially cripple our community if they were presented this year. We need to recognize that and approach it appropriately as we move forward. And I believe that we can do that with an open ear in the community and an active voice for the rest of the school board. Every single person sitting here today has dedicated their time to serving their community because they love it, and I'm no different. I've lived in Milton for several years, and I've met some wonderful people while I lived here. Several of which are also running for positions on different boards this year, and most of those people I now consider very close friends, and some of them even my family. Milton's my home, and I owe this to my home. That's what I've got.
I do have some requested questions.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go backwards. I'll start with you. Do you support, it's called House Bill 20, why or why not? Second half of that question is, do you support public health policy to provide vaccination for our teachers, staff, and students?
I'd have to actually read the verbiage in House Bill 20 before I could really give a standpoint on it, but I believe the second part had to do with mandatory vaccinations. Was that the case?
Yes.
Yes. Well, and not mandatory.
Or
Do you
just
support
vaccinations in general?
public health policy to provide vaccinations for teachers, staff, and students?
Without reading the actual verbiage of the bill, I'm going to just answer the more basic part of that question as to whether I support public health policy to get teachers and students vaccinated. Absolutely. I think the science on that is pretty clear right now. I think that what we need to do is follow the lead that we've been following in recent weeks, and we need to continue to get these vaccines into communities like ours that are, struggling with an opportunity to get on it, or even our state that's struggling to get different people like our school employees into a reasonable group so that they can get in. So I absolutely think that it should be something that is looked heavily into to get that as an opportunity that any student or school board or teacher or educational system employee can utilize.
I don't know what 120 is either, I'm sorry. But I do believe that our school and anyone that's working with the public, to tell you the truth, and in nursing homes, should have the opportunity to get vaccinations. Whether they want to get it or not, that is totally up to them. But I think we're serving each other by getting them.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Is that
It's just that, well, the big bill is like.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Two
thank
different
you.
questions, sorry. I thought they were tied together. The bill HB 20 would establish an education savings account program which allows families to use taxpayer dollars to educate their children outside, outside of their local public school, including the homeschool and private school setting. So,
Can we go back on that? Yes.
Just
thank you. It's a village to run.
Again, I haven't read the entire thing through, so I'd have to take time and really read through that that specific bill to form a full opinion. But I think it's, when it comes to private education and being able to decide what you think is best for your own children, I think that's a fundamental part of raising a child. If you believe that your child would benefit most from learning in a private environment that you teach, by all means, more power to you. Teach them at home if you can. If you think that the public system would be more beneficial to your children, or even a subsidized system that's half public, half private, or half vocational, or whatever way you want to put it, whatever you think is best going to benefit your child, I believe is your parental right to decide. So if that encompasses part of that question, I'm hoping, knock on wood, that it did.
Okay. A hypothetical question. So if I wanted to send my kids to Seacoast Christian School down in Dover, do you think that Milton should subsidize a portion or part of that? That's what the bill is getting to, is that you could pick a school other than Milton, or other than homeschool, and yet your home district would have to pay a portion of that.
Then in that case, I would say that I think that the taxpayer money that we're pulling in Milton should stay in Milton, is how I would put that. I think that if you want to send your child to any school whatsoever, that's your right. But if it's a school that's out of district that isn't teaching a same curriculum or a similar curriculum or a valid curriculum, or however you might want to look at it, or a curriculum that's not the standard curriculum, I think that should be independently assessed on those students.
Back to Lynette.
I would say yes. And the reason I'm saying that, coming from a larger city like San Diego, we had subsidized schooling. And if it weren't for that subsidized schooling, which my taxes helped pay for and contributed to, my children wouldn't have ended up being CPAs, all the different positions that they're in, because they specialize in mathematics, in the arts, in things that they wanted to be involved in. And I think it's fair, if you want to be educated, let's go into an area that you have some type of forte in.
Travis, HB 20.
So I have had a discussion on House Bill 20 with several people. I like the idea insofar that you can direct funds to the school that you want your child to be educated at. However, I also don't support the bill because, in my opinion, it's opening doors that are unknown. For example, if this House bill passes to say I can direct a certain amount of tax dollars to a specific school, then someone who's in the school district and will know kids, well, can they direct their tax dollars back to their pocketbook? You're basically opening Pandora's box. We don't know the outcome of what House Bill 20 could potentially cause. So no, I don't really support House Bill 20. As far as vaccinations, I do support individuals who want to get the vaccination, but I don't think it should be mandatory. That is a health decision for the individual or the parent to make, not the community.
Dawn,
Yes.
HB 20.
Don't want to seem like I'm dodging the questions. I will answer them, but I just want to point out that if these are concerns for people, that the best possible people to engage with these questions would be our representatives, Mr. Bailey and Mr. Haywood, our Senator Jeb Bradley, and the Governor, Chris Sununu. They are the ones who are responsible for these, for passage of these bills and the wordage of these bills. That said, I think that if we're going to try to give our children the best possible opportunities, that those best possible opportunities should be defined by the parents. So I have to support that the money should go with the child as far as their education goes. And with regards to vaccination, should be mandatory. Anyone who wants to get it should go ahead and get it. However, again, the governor is the one who is managing who gets these vaccines, not the school board. So if you have an issue with how it's being presented, you need to take it up with Mr. Bailey, Mr. Haywood, and Governor Sununu. They are the only ones that can provide action on that. We cannot as school board members.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I believe the question came in terms of childhood vaccinations to enter public school, not COVID-19.
Well, that's why I asked for the questions in writing.
My faithful intermediary, Lou.
That's why we did it in writing, so I'm not gonna paraphrase and adjust the question halfway through, or it stands as it stands. First question, HB 20. Second question, do you support vaccinations for teachers, staff, and students?
We will, done responding.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. I just want to clarify something about HB 20. The funding that they were talking about allowing parents to spend is not from the town. It is the state portion. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that it's the state portion of the funding. Also, I don't know if you guys have, if you've been following it, the bill has been retained because they think that it needs some work. But as far as the education freedom accounts and school choice, I'm definitely a supporter of having options, because education is not one size fits all, and kids have different needs. Parents are probably gonna know the best what their kids need. My kids, I have 2 girls, and we have done a couple different private Christian schools. We've done traditional homeschooling. We've done online homeschooling with VLAX, and they've attended Newton. So we've done the whole gamut, and homeschooling wasn't a great fit for either one of them. One did better in a private school environment, and the other one has done much better in a public school environment. It's actually really wonderful for my daughter. She has some special needs, and we're really accommodating there, and that's been a really good fit for her. So every child is different, and the parents are going to know what's best. So that's definitely most important. There were some issues with the bill, which is why it's being written, because it needs a little bit of work. There were some concerns about those, kind of like you mentioned, the Pandora's box, the unintended consequences, what it's going to do to town budgets and things like that. So it definitely needs some work. As far as the teachers getting vaccinated, I believe there already is a plan, the vaccination plan, put through the state of New Hampshire, the governor, and teachers are on the list. As far as students go, they're not recommending vaccinating kids yet. They're not sure if it's safe. We're not even there yet, but teachers are on the list. But I don't think it should be mandatory.
Mr. Shu.
Yes, HB 20, I'm worried about the HB 20. Why I'm worried, and I'm not going to say you send these kids out to different institutions, the quality is not going to be good, but I've seen some places where some of my grandkids in another district went to some places, and I thought the quality that was being offered at that institution was not good. The other thing I'm worried about is the possibility of abuse. We know there's abuse in the welfare, unemployment. Look at the billions of dollars that's being wasted, okay? Do I think, in my opinion on getting shots, not just the teachers should get shots in the schools. I think they all should. The paras are on the front line. They're right in the faces of the kids. The teachers are there too. And also your janitors are cleaning up the mess. And your bus drivers. These kids walk by the bus driver. They're less than 3 feet apart. I think everybody should be get that vaccination. I'm not saying it should be mandated, but that's going to be an issue down the road. It's going to be an issue because we require now for certain kids to go to school to have certain shots. And it's going to be a big issue later on. I think everybody has the right to get the shot or not get the shot. That's up to you. But I got my shot.
Okay. Those were the 2 biggie questions that I got from outside, HB 20 and the moderate. Questions from the floor? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. To each one of you, I'm sorry. Yeah, Andy Ross, and to each one of you, Milton's tax rate for the school is $13.15 per 1,000. And I'm just taking Wakefield. It's sort of the same size town. Is $6.24 per 1,000. What would each one of you? How would you make the tax rate more sustainable in Milton? if you were elected.
I'll start with that. The other thing you're not bringing into the picture is that your total assessment, your valuation for your town is going to be different. If you want to really be compared to somebody, you ought to compare yourself to Pittsfield, because they have a high school. Okay. They have an elementary school, and they're having issues over their funding stuff. I think it's a wrong comparison to Wakefield. But also, if you look at the operating budget for Wakefield, I think you're going to find it's a lot higher than Milton's. Last time what I went and did, part of my job, went around and I sent out requests from the 91A certain communities. And I asked to get copies of their operating budget. I found them to be interested. And I got quite a few. Barrington, Pittsfield, Wakefield. But they're old copies. I'm gonna have to do it again. You can go by the total value assessment of them. I'm gonna find Wakefield and Milton are totally different.
Abigail?
You know, budgets and taxes are always a real point of contention, you know, as a taxpayer. I mean, I definitely, you know, I hold my breath every time I open the tax bill, you know, twice a year. So I get that. We do have limitations though, also with this, particularly with school budgets, because so much of the school budgets requirements are mandated by laws and rules and regulations, mostly from the federal government, which is interesting because they control most of that stuff, but we get a tiny percentage in funding, which is ridiculous. But that's a whole other conversation, and we don't have any control over that. So the best thing that we can do is try and work with what we have to be compliant, provide the kids the best education they can get, and keep the taxpayers, you know, taxes down. But sometimes that requires, you know, creativity and flexibility, doing things better. It doesn't always have to cost money, so we can find ways to improve education without spending lots of money. I know that they work really hard on grant writing. Grants are another really good way to help us keep the budget under control.
I do believe we need to look at grant funding from federal and state sources. I think that can help to reduce costs, but I think we also need to look at all possible options. And consider it also with, you know, what is going to be best for the kids in this community for education. You know, is it going to be better to send our kids to another school system, to join with another regional school system? You know, we need to consider all of the options and the opportunities it is going to provide for our children as well. It's not always cost, but we do have to look at it at the cost for the taxpayer. It's our responsibility to do so if we are school board members. That's what I would look at, all the options.
So after attending several school board meetings, I know that there's a small percentage that's controlled by the school board on spending. The rest of it is set by the state and the federal government, like Abigail stated. I do agree that we should look at as many grants as possible to get our hands on them if we can. We are currently going through an investigative about other schools in the area, whether or not it'd be cheaper or if the grass is actually greener on the other side. But I also want to say that everyone's like, bring down the tax rate, but you're also screaming that you want a better school. So which one do you want, a lower tax rate or a better school? You can only buy so much, and then you got to figure out something creative. So if you want a better school, you got to start supporting that school, whether it's agreeing to increase the budget or stop posting on Facebook how much Newt sucks, because Newt does not suck. That's it.
Did you look at my words?
No.
Okay. I'd have to say I agree with Travis a lot. We have to be more creative. I think that we're stuck in a rut, and all we can see is what's right there in front of us and not look outside and see what we can do that's for the betterment of our town and especially our children. Both Doug, Travis, and myself are all on a special committee to research all of this and take a look at it. We have groups that have been set up so that we can go out and get information from different schools within New Hampshire. And that's something that's in the process. So it's not something that isn't being looked at. It is.
I'm also going to say the same thing with everyone else, and that we really need to be creative when it comes to our grant writing and our research of grants. There's been meetings that I've sat in as a spectator where we've had conversations about how we don't know how we're going to fund a certain thing, and 5 minutes on Google found several federal grants that were available that we could apply for. But those weren't previously known before the meeting had started. I think that we need to have someone on that 24/7. If there's a grant available, there's no reason that Milton's name isn't on the top of that list. If there is money out there that can be dispersed, there's no reason that it's not already in our hands. I think that as everyone else has said, or actually more what Travis has said, that you can complain that you want your taxes lowered, or you can complain that you want a better school board, or a better school rather. But when we look at the numbers for other towns in our state, they have similar taxes and similar school situations, but they rank a lot higher on the educational board than Milton does out of our whole state. So I think it really just comes down to open communication with the public about what the school board is doing as a whole, to look for grants, to be creative, to try new ideas, and to embrace, any opportunity that's available, and really making sure that we're putting our name out there for every single penny that's available.
Chris?
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment to Abigail. So she's been a legislator, and so is Larry. I think they're gonna realize this. Originally, the federal government offered on special education to pay us a certain amount to help us with special ed students. And also the state offered originally to offer us a certain amount of money for retirement for our employees. If you notice, every year, the state and the federal government do less and less, and we as taxpayers have to pick up that burden, and that's what happens every year. We as a school district. So the federal government and the state government are not meeting their obligations to education. That's the bottom line of it. I think our two ex-legislators know that.
Questions from the audience?
Yes, as a home educator in Milton for 15 years, I've educated 4 children, graduated 2, 1 on the way, all in college, and I have 1 more left that's going to have 2 more years. So I was surprised to see in the school report that this past year, 64 homeschoolers are part of the enrollment. If they're part of the enrollment, does that mean that they're part of the budget? And if they're part of the budget and 64 homeschoolers do not attend the school to receive any benefits or education, what happens to that money? And do you think that that should go back to the homeschool families?
So I'm gonna know the particular makings of the laws, how that works, to be honest with you. I know they come in, use our facilities. Everybody has the right in this town to use the school facilities or the town facilities. You can't stop them. We have the sports teams.
Right, but if we're not using it, if we're not using the facility and we budgeted for it, where's that money going?
They're not being paid in that sense. And they come in and come in and do your own activities. You'd have to ask particular laws that do with it. You'd have to ask me.
Well, I mean, if the school is budgeting for it, if they're part of the enrollment, I'm curious to know if they are being budgeted in that enrollment. Do you think they should be part of the budget? Or do you think that that money, if it is being budgeted, should go back to the homeschooling families that are not?
Mr. Humphries, you were on the budget committee. Is there a portion of the school board budget that's dedicated?
There's no money set aside for the homeschooling. I think what she's talking about right now is that when you look at the total students in the state and the town, that homeschool students are a part of that, there's private school as well as the public school, but there's no funding line item within the school budget that I've ever seen that was dedicated to the homeschool aspect. I don't think she's not looking at that piece as whether or not, I think the question is more, is there state funding that's available in that regards? And if so, how would that apply? But right now, I know there isn't anything I've seen in the school that's budgeted for that. Larry's got something to address on too.
It is my recollection that would be monies coming in to do daily average attendance. suggest from that, that a blinking traffic light is off half the time. What you pay for is the blinking traffic light. On a similar basis, you are paying for the resources, of public resource of the brick and mortar school and the associated environment of the schools. But it is for computed for purposes of daily average attendance. Which is
I'll turn it up to, because Doug's already weighed in on this. Abigail, Dawn, anyone want to weigh in on the question of homeschoolers, school departments, budget, any correlation between?
I myself think that we should have someone on a panel from the whole, representing the whole homeschool education system, because they might offer some creative things that we can do in our own system and some maybe a cost-effective things. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I think one of the things I dislike the most is that we don't share information like this and we don't pass on things that work and don't work. I think it's something we could learn from.
I haven't looked at that, so I don't really know how it's allocated with regards to the budget. But I do think that if we have homeschoolers and they are part of the school program here, they should have access to some resources. These are children in Milton. We should be responsible for all of our children, just some of our children.
The homeschoolers do have access to resources,
Okay.
actually at the school. So just to clarify that, I actually, one of my daughters who was homeschooling through VLAX was also a part of the cosmetology program at Dover High, so through CTE. So she actually, even though she was a homeschooler, she would go down to the school and take the bus and go to that cosmetology program. So I know, and also sports, they can, I was told they could participate in sports, and I believe she could even enroll in up to 2 classes at the school. So maybe if there was like a math class or a science class or something, or art, something she wanted to take, that is accessible to homeschoolers in town.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That's,
I have to be sensitive, and I can be over a little bit of point of order. It's now 4:09. We kind of set aside 2 hours. I'm not sure. I just don't want the Zoom account to shut off and all of a sudden everybody didn't get to hear their final statements.
That I think you find that that's 4 hours minimum.
Okay. All right.
Not that I'm looking to add 2 more hours.
Mom, you had a question? Just curious what the candidates think in their view, the biggest challenge for the school board will be in the next 3 years that the term will be for.
I have to be honest with everybody. I'm afraid. I think this COVID is here to stay for a long time. And I'm worried about the variant that's been discovered in California, because we're called the Kent. It's been combined with the California strain, and they say it's a lot worse than what we've had here right now. And that's where my fear is.
Well, they're going to take the wall from Texas and run it north south now.
Why don't they take the one from the capital and spread it out? Sorry. That's my biggest fear. It's here to stay.
Something that I think is going to come up, and which sort of already has, with, if you've been following the meeting, some of the issues about people who were fully remote versus coming into school and whether or not they want to stay remote. There has been a decline in public school attendance in New Hampshire. It's already was underway. And then COVID hit and we had the remote schooling and things like that. And some parents are finding, first of all, there's a lot of families that they're finding that's a good fit for their family and they're going to stick with it. There have been families that have moved to private school because they needed the full-time in-person, and they may find that that's a good fit for them. The other thing is that families that aren't comfortable if we're, in school full-time, in the fall that are also gonna opt to stay home. And one of the things that was brought up was whether or not the people, you know, we're losing the state portion of funding for the people who choose to stay home or go to private school. And that's a reality that we need to face, is if there's a big decline in numbers, and if that stays the case, and if it affects our budget and the funding, and what are the numbers gonna look like? So.
Don?
I think the greatest challenge right now is getting our kids back to school. We have to find a way to do it. Our kids need to be in school. It's harming them both physically and emotionally, not having the social interactions. I can't imagine having had what we've put our children through in this pandemic. I realize that we need to be safe, but I think we can safely. I think we can bring our kids back safely. I think we have to do that. I think that's the big challenge facing us, and that's what we need to focus on immediately.
I would have to agree with Doug and Abigail in our roundabout way. COVID is definitely here to stay. We do need to figure out a safe way to get kids back into school if their parents want them back in school. Funding is going to be actually the state funds for COVID are going to, and then is going to come to figure out how to keep our school if COVID's here to stay for a while. What's it going to look like 3 years from now? No one, but I have a feeling it's going to be funding. It's going to be the big issue for the school the next 3 years.
Lynette?
I think the biggest thing that we have to get used to is change. Just the simple fact that everything is changing. That means that our taxes are going to change. That means what the costs are going to change. And we've got to find something that works with all that. We're trying drastically right now, but we need to come together and make plans.
I think that in the last several years and several election cycles, we've seen Milton have some pretty huge ideas. And I've seen this town implement some of those ideas, and not even just on a school board level, on an overall, even our BOS, our budget committee, the ideas that have been coming out of these departments are wonderful when it comes to growing the town. And I think that we need to make sure that our school system can keep up with those ideas. So I think that with variables like COVID and like Lynette said, the tax system changing and different curriculums being introduced in schools and new bills being introduced into the legislative bodies, I think that there are a million different things that could be big issues that we might just not be ready for unless we start combating them head on. I think funding initially is going to be a big one because the math just hasn't been proven yet to show how funding looks with remote versus full in person. We haven't had a long enough trial to see what's going to be sustainable and what's not going to be sustainable. And I also think that there's going to be a lot of time that's going to need to be dedicated on just the mental health of the kids that are going to be coming back. We have students that are, coming into schools now that they don't remember the last time they were in a building. They don't remember the last time they talked to their teacher in person, or that they actually saw their friends. And I think that is going to be something that lingers for a decade for half of the adults that exist currently. I think it's going to be something that lingers for a lot longer with the kids. And I think that as a whole, that's also going to be a really big priority that we need to focus on, is making sure that these kids are where they need to be emotionally to be able to safely be in an educational environment and ready to learn. I think that's going to be a pretty big one.
I agree with you. No question.
I think maybe these board members can't see, but where I've been involved, maybe Travis has been more involved. See, I think we as a school board have done an exceptional job in preparing our school to bring those kids back full time. But also, you gotta remember, we've been on hybrid all the way from March. 2 days a week, and the governor just mandated that for March 8th. Okay, the only time we closed was the 2 weeks after Christmas, because I'm the one that made the motion. I was worried about that one because more parents are going to get together, and I was worried about the transmission. So our school has been, and I called WMUR9 and I left a message to the guy in charge, and I told him to come over and take a look at our schools because we've been open. And he's called Earl, and Earl's called him back. And I called union leader, and I told her to contact Earl too, to see what we've done as a community. We've spent our grant money wisely. Go walk through our schools. You're gonna see barriers up at the desk, in the cafeteria, masks, not just these, but the regular ones also that we ordered. So we have done a lot, but I'm still worried about the future. And I hope, if I don't make it, whoever gets on YouTube, you're gonna have a job. And I wish you the best. I really do.
I think at this point.
Okay,
what
that's
I'd like to
okay.
do
That's
is
okay.
Go to the closing comment.
That's mine. I'm all set.
Once we do that.
I'll do
we'll
it
be
then.
at 2.5 hours, so, 3 minutes, closing comment, who wants to go first?
Short.
Okay.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Yeah, okay, 6 people. 6 people running for positions this year, right? Not doing too good. 6 people running for this position or these 2 positions this year, and most of them are new. And I think that no matter who you vote for this year, you are going to have a very solid voice on this board. That's where I'll leave it.
That's good. That's really good. I think,
I have to, can I just interject? And thank you to everybody who's participating in the Zoom and is here and taking some risk being here together. I've done this a number of years, and this year more than others. I was like, I'm not sure I can do another candidate, but thank you. You are what make this, all of you make this so informative. I'm hearing things today that I haven't heard in over 10 years. So thank you for all participating. When that, yeah.
okay. I think what I wanted to say mainly is we need to move beyond fear and be proactive and make things positive for our kids returning. Yes, they're going to have all these different problems, but you know what? We can handle it. We can help them make it through and let them know we can endure this. And I think that's a big deal right now. The school has done, and the current board has done a wonderful job. They have dividers in the cafeteria and in their classrooms. I don't have any problems with what they're doing. They're doing a great job. That's all.
If you're not going to vote for me, at least get out and vote March 9th at Newt Cafeteria. I do want to thank Doug, just in case he doesn't get reelected, for doing a great job. And that's pretty much it.
I'm also encouraged. I've lived in this community for 23 years, and I've never seen as many people who have come out to run for these positions as I'm seeing this year, and it's very encouraging. I want to let you know that I will listen to you. I won't just hear you. I will listen to you if you elect me, and I will try my best to bring your concerns to action if you vote for me. Thank you.
One of the things about institutions, particularly government ones, is that change is very difficult, very slow, if not completely impossible. There's a lot of people always done it this way, or we can't do that. Well, what happened last March when, with no notice, the governor said schools shut down, has blown all of that completely out of the water, because under terrible, difficult circumstances, you know, we had to shift gears and make huge changes. And I witnessed, you know, administration and teachers and staff who absolutely rose to the occasion. And change can happen. Sometimes it does require flexibility and creativity. But now that we know this, no longer be an excuse. When we come out the other side of this, I look forward to seeing what we can do.
Done? Okay. Well, that'll give us 15 minutes to.
Oh, he can't do that. He can't do it.
Humor.
There was one question on how does someone obtain an absentee ballot?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Two ways on that. I know that Tammy Crandall has it at the school, and she's got them available on the website, and they're also available on the website here for the town, under the town meeting area. contact the town clerk if they can.
Thank you. Well said. Just to reiterate, we are having the election on the 9th, the same process and procedures. We made it through with the primary election in September, and I think less than 1% of the voters chose to wear masks, not wear masks. They were segregated off the vote in one area. I didn't hear of any negative or, that the last election was a super spreader event. So please come out and vote. It's a very safe environment. The same thing, all the booths will be set up. You don't have to be anywhere near close to each other.
And there's always cookies.
Homeschoolers have agreed to keep our weight up. I'd asked to increase the density of chocolate chips per cookie. On my part. Thank
Also
you.
serving meals to go with them.
I'm going to close the school board portion up. We have one candidate left. Larry, you do, if you choose. You are the one candidate for CBA.
No, I was ready to get
You're given the floor.
my clothes. I didn't even get socks on.
Hey, Andy.
That since I am this far away from people, I will take the mask off. And let me begin with my defects. I am not particularly cuddly. I do not ask softball questions. And I probably have more information at hand than most people running for office. These are all defects. What I brought with me and what I gave to Chris is an article from Foster's on Bill 586. I also have a summary of HB 20. I also have in my head an assessment of the governor's plan to reduce the business enterprise tax. And in point of fact, will draw the money of $3,500 to $8,000 from public education funds. These are all things that have an impact on the operation of this town and its committees. Doesn't have that much to do with ZBA. Stan and I are not quite a tag team match. We are the two on the ballot. I support him. He has a wonderful, this is the compliment, truculent Massachusetts childhood, and it is a wonderful thing in keeping order in the sometimes contentious ZBA hearings. But I will go back to what I mentioned in the planning board. People come to the planning board because they have rights of use in a zone that is covered under this glorious land use regulation. The color changes and you can kill larger and larger cockroaches with it. But it is the civic basis of community. It really is. It controls what you can do with your land. It controls what rights your neighborhood has against that use. People beat us upside the head because we allowed accessory use for Mighty Joe. It's in the zoning regulation. Mighty Joe took us to court because we ruled against them for expansion, because it's in zoning and that zoning controls. Neither the planning board nor ZBA make zoning. We are pass-through agencies. It is wonderful work. It is the closest thing you're going to get to close distance democracy. It really is. That is both my opening statement,
my comment about the process. And I will add one more thing, and that is, I also brought with me the list of, you can find this out yourself. This is a list of taxes that are paid in Milton. We are a property tax state. The governor wants to reduce the $4,800 that you pay on interest and dividends income down to zero. Do the math. How much money do you have to have as loose cash to have $4,800 in interest and dividend income? Money at the top, property tax at the bottom. It's a lousy way to run an airline. For point of reference, public service. We should have more business in the town. Public service gets taxed on every square foot of telephone pole in the ground. They do have the 58 acres over on McKegney. After that, the biggest one is Three Ponds. They pay $138,000 in taxes. Then it goes down to 93, and then 55. We are not a business-rich community. These are all property taxes that does it. Anybody who pulls money out of the public tax base for private use is taking money out of your tax wallet and putting into theirs for free. Vote for me for ZBA. In committee, Kim will find, Humphrey will find that I am remarkably prudent. I enjoy the work of civil government. I'm a sucker for it.
We enjoy you, Larry.
Chris, question for Larry.
Oh,
Don't go
No, you can't go. Oh, no, you get questions.
Very interesting. Don't make me go home and look in my dictionary. What does truculent mean?
Thank you.
What do you mean? What do you mean truculent is?
What is it?
What do you mean? You trying to give me a problem? I believe that I have just defined truculent for you. It's an in-your-face pain in the lower neck.
Larry, I have to tell you, I appreciate all the information you have stuffed in your head, because every meeting I've ever seen you at, you bring out really good information along with the story.
This is a size 6.5 skull. It is fortunately titanium. And the problem is not that I know that much. It's that the stuff that comes in I don't seem to forget. And yeah, so any other questions?
Larry, I will have to say, I knew what that word meant because I have been referred to as being truculent at times.
Now I know.
Impossible. I will state for the record that Roger never said that.
No, he wouldn't dare.
I have something to do with truckers.
The Webster's dictionary definition of truculent is eager or quick to argue or fight, aggressively defiant. That's Webster's.
Yeah, and honestly, Stan is wonderful. If you try to push in on the statutory quasi-judicial rights of the ZBA, he will knock you back within statute, and it's a rare gift. I will just consign you to hell quietly, but that's not as useful.
All right, and after 2.5 hours?
We need a vote to thank the moderator.
Thank you.
Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Bernie.
Have it down again.
You gave up a Sunday afternoon?
That's what I mean.
To come in here.
Yeah, well, you have to Humphrey help you do your job, so I just wanted to.
Oh. Well, maybe we should run the moderator. What do you think? No, you just give it to